Breaking news. Please like, share, and subscribe and get ready for the board's return. Thank you.
Do know 5 fatalities at least.
Breaking news.
At this hour, multiple people wounded. The shooter, at least initially, Wolf, did not cooperate. And another key piece of information tonight that we just learned from law enforcement and city officials here in Annapolis is that this shooting appeared to have been interrupted by police. Multiple law enforcement officials telling us that police got here within about 60 seconds after the shooting began. And that apparently something happened to interrupt that shooting. They would not give details of that, and they would not give details about whether gunfire was exchanged between law enforcement and the shooter. But according to their accounts, this shooting was interrupted by law enforcement arriving within about 60 seconds of when this started, Wolf.
All right, Brian, I want you to stand by. I know you're getting more information. It's been almost 2 hours since this incident occurred, and police now and local authorities are beginning to provide details, very shocking details. I must say, I want to bring in our experts, former FBI Supervisory Special Agent Josh Campbell and former CIA counterterrorism official Phil Mudd. Josh, first of all, what have you heard from authorities at that press conference that really stands out to you?
Well, three quick things. Well, first of all, being that obviously authorities continue to search the building top to bottom. They're trying to determine, are there other people there who might have been injured? That's textbook. They're going to do that. So although, sadly, we've seen that number of deceased now, sadly, at 5, police will obviously continue to search to determine were there other casualties. We'll hear about that. Secondly, there was this question which we've been reporting on for about the last half hour, and that is, what were the circumstances surrounding the shooter being taken into custody? Now, obviously, we've seen a number of these incidents where a shooter is either engaged by law enforcement and is killed or kills himself. In this case, the subject was taken into custody, and one thing that stands out to me from the press conference is that he was transported directly to the police station in order to be interrogated, which says that he wasn't injured, he didn't need to be taken to the hospital. So again, a lot of questions. Did he go there intending to make it out alive and then simply decide that he was going to give up, or were there other factors there? The last thing, Wolf, real quickly, is when you look at the type of weaponry that was used, a shotgun. Now, I can tell you, having been familiar with a shotgun, you don't simply pick up this type of firearm and use it accurately. It's a very violent type of weapon with a very strong recoil that takes practice. So this person, again, there's a lot we don't know, but that particular use of a weapon with a shotgun tells me that he at least knew his way around a weapon.
One eyewitness spoke to our affiliate WJLA. I want to play that sound. Listen to this.
Here. So I was on the phone with a client and heard a loud noise, like an incredibly loud bang, and I poked my head around the corner of my desk so I could see out our front door into the front door of the Capital Gazette, and I saw a guy. I saw a guy holding a gun. The door of the Capital Gazette had been blown to pieces. It was in shattered pieces all on the carpet. And this guy was holding what looked like a big shotgun and moving across the entrance of the Capital Gazette office, pointing the gun deeper into the office, like he was targeting people.
Keith, did that man say anything?
I have no idea. I heard some indistinct shouting after another couple minutes before there were some more gunshots, but he didn't. I only looked at him for a second, right? I ducked my head back behind the wall as soon as I saw the guy initially, but I didn't hear him say anything distinct.
After you tried to hide, what'd you do?
Called the police, and they got here really fast. They got here real fast. The police were here in a couple minutes, and they checked on us in our office, made sure we were okay, and told us to just hunker down. And they, I guess, got the guy pretty quick after that.
Are all the people in your office okay?
Everyone's okay, yep.
Did you see anyone get hurt?
I did. I looked around the corner a second time, and I saw a young woman who looked like she'd been hurt. She was on the ground.
Injured?
There was a bunch of blood on the floor, so I assume so.
Did you see the shooter get shot, or did you?
No, I saw him move across the entrance of the office, and that was it.
And then after you called the police, where'd you go from there?
We stayed in our office until a second group of police officers showed up. They actually broke down our office door, and then they escorted us out. They escorted us out with our hands up over our heads. And we spent some time in the office building next to our building, and they just made sure we were all safe, and then let us go.
Can you describe the reunification point over here? How many people are over there?
Oh, when they evacuated us to the reunification point, we were in a conference room, and there was probably 25 people. It's a big building, it's like there's doctors' offices and law firms and other insurance companies. There's a lot of people who work in that building.
Phil Mudd, what does it say to you that the shooter, he got towards that newsroom and began shooting through the door, through the glass, as he tried to enter?
A couple thoughts here. When you look at any case like this, whether it's maybe an independent shooter, we don't know that, but potentially in this case, or whether it's a major terror case, two categories in any case: Wolf, capability and intent. What can somebody do? What they want? What do they want to do? This gave me clues in both directions. On intent, if this guy just wanted to kill people, why did he go to a building that was secured and force his way in by having to shoot through the door? That tells me that there's some reason he chose this target. Does he not like newspapers? Does he not like the media? Is there somebody in there he doesn't like? It gives me a clue about target. It also gives me a clue about sophistication and capability. If you look at things like the Pulse shooting in Orlando, if you look at what happened in Las Vegas, horrific shootings by people who had weapons that could maximize casualties. How much sophistication did he have if he brought in a weapon that could not maximize casualties, because you can't have a stock that has many rounds on it? It gives me some clues that are taking me toward he chose the target with intent, and he didn't choose it as part of a sophisticated plot that was intended to maximize casualties, despite the fact that we have a horrific tragedy of 5 dead. It's not 50. That's a miracle.
Yeah, so far at least 5 dead, but there are several more serious injuries. Some of those injuries are critical, we are told. I want to get some more on the breaking news. Senator Ben Cardin of Maryland is joining us. He's a Democrat. So what are you hearing, Senator? What's your reaction?
Well, Wolf, this is tragic. The Capital Gazette is an Annapolis newspaper. It is homegrown. It's hard to believe that something like this would happen at the Capital Gazette. I know people that work there, so obviously I'm extremely concerned. We know that 5 people have lost their life and more are at risk. This is just tragic.
Have you heard anything, Senator, about a possible motive why the shooter would storm the newsroom of the Capital Gazette in the state capital of Maryland, in Annapolis, and start killing people?
I have not, and it's hard to understand why this would happen. Again, this is a newspaper which is a local paper. It's not a controversial editorial policy. It covers local news, and it's part of the Baltimore Sun ownership network. And it's just difficult to understand why this would happen anywhere but at the Annapolis Gazette.
Do you know, Senator, if there were any threats, any warnings, any indication that the Capital Gazette or any other newspaper in Maryland was under some sort of threat?
I've heard nothing that would indicate that was the case. I've heard nothing about that whatsoever. I do know that everybody now in the Baltimore Sun are a little bit concerned about security, and obviously there's a great deal of interest as to keeping people safe. Until we know more, I think we'd just be speculating.
All right, Senator, thank you very much. We'll stay in close touch with you. Our crime and justice reporter, Shimon Prokopez, is getting some more information. Shimon, what are you learning? Shimon, if you can hear me, tell us what you're learning. All right, we're going to get back to Shimon in a moment. But Evan Perez, you're getting more information as well. What else are you learning?
That's right, Wolf. We are told by sources that one of the things that they found when they arrested the suspect, that he had some devices, he had some items on him that were intended to look like, at least investigators believe, was intended to look like he was carrying explosive devices, perhaps grenades of some kind. They've determined that there was nothing there, that this is not at all, it was not at all explosives that he was carrying, but that is what they found on him. As we reported a short time ago, the suspect, initially at least, refused to cooperate with investigators. He was not carrying any kind of identification. The FBI was trying to figure out a way to try to identify him, and I think that's one of the reasons why the police were a little hesitant at first to provide additional information. They don't know exactly what this man's motivation is. We don't know why he showed up at this newspaper today. We don't know certainly whether or not he has any relationship with anyone inside the building or inside this newsroom. But he certainly, it appears, was bent on carrying out mayhem there. And if it was not for the police who responded so quickly to stop the situation, perhaps we'd be dealing with a lot more. We're told that in addition to the 5 fatalities that the governor talked about, or the police talked about in the last hour, that there are additional people who are injured and are being treated. These range from simple trauma, people who ran out of the building having dealt with this traumatic situation, as you might imagine, to people who may have been injured by flying glass or shrapnel as a result of what was happening there. So again, in addition to the 5 fatalities, we believe, according to our sources, that there are additional people who were injured, are being treated. At least one of them is in fairly serious condition. So we will keep an eye on that to see whether or not this number of fatalities goes up. But at this point, we only know of 5 fatalities at this point.
Yeah, and the local authorities described some of those injuries as people who were, in their words, gravely injured. So 5 fatalities. Unfortunately, that may be a low number. Sean Turner is with us as well. Very early in this process right now, so we don't know the name of the shooter, don't have any idea what the motive possibly could have been. This investigation is only just beginning.
Yeah, it is, and the fact that this individual was not cooperating with authorities, not telling anyone who he is right now, is a problem for authorities. But it is the case that it's just a delaying tactic. Law enforcement authorities will be able to determine who this individual is. They're going to look at a couple of different factors to do that. As Evan pointed out, this individual had devices on him that might provide some clue as to who this individual is. There was a weapon here. A weapon has a serial number, so we'll be able to look at that serial number and determine where that weapon came from. It's also the case that there's someone out there who this individual is connected to, who knows that this individual is not where he's supposed to be at this time, and there's someone out there who this individual would have been in contact with, who we would have talked to, who would know that this individual was troubled. So they'll be looking very closely at that to determine who this individual is. The other thing is, as we talked about a little bit earlier, is the Capital Gazette, being a news organization. If there were individuals who were reaching out to that news organization with some sort of frustration, reaching out angry over some sort of issue, there would be a record of that at the Capital Gazette. So as we interview people who were there in this horrific situation, there are going to be people who are able to say, yes, there was a young person who was reaching out, who was very angry about it. Here's what we know about that individual. So we'll be able to get to the bottom of who this individual is.
As they say, this investigation is only just beginning. Multiple agencies are involved. Local, state, and federal authorities are on the scene right now. I want to bring in our senior media correspondent, Brian Stelter. At this point, Brian, we don't know if the newsroom, specifically the journalists, were targeted, but there are a lot of questions that we all have right now.
Yes, and we also don't know if the 5 people reported dead were all in the newsroom, if they were all staffers, or if there were others as well, perhaps people outside the building or in other offices. But if these journalists are among the dead, this will be the deadliest day in American journalism in several years. This might remind some people of 2015 in Virginia. A TV news crew was attacked during a live report. 2 journalists died that day. Thankfully, attacks on journalists are uncommon in the U.S. We do not see fatalities very often like this. And so as we wait for more information, we try to find out who has passed away, who has been injured. It is clear that something happened in this newsroom, something horrible. And now we know some of the reporters who survived are now trying to report the story. They're, of course, speaking with police, being interviewed, but they're also trying to report the story the best they can, because after all, well, this is a daily newspaper that serves Annapolis and the surrounding communities. It's an outstanding local paper. It's the kind of newspaper that people want in their lives. Local journalism on the ground there at the Maryland State House and around Annapolis and around the region, the Chesapeake Bay area. This is a special newspaper, and it's a moment that I think so many journalists have feared for a long time. Regardless of whether this newsroom was targeted or not, this has been a fear on many journalists' minds, and it is worth noting right now, we've seen stepped-up security at the Baltimore Sun and in other cities as well. The NYPD says that some teams have been deployed outside buildings housing newsrooms in New York City this afternoon.
Let me read some of the tweets. One journalist, Phil Davis, who covers business, politics, also crime for the Capital Gazette, this local newspaper in Annapolis, Anne Arundel County. He started tweeting shortly after the incident at 3:41 p.m. I will tweet when I can while I wait to be interviewed by police. 3:42 p.m. A single shooter shot multiple people at my office, some of whom are dead. 3:45 p.m. Gunmen shot through the glass door to the office and opened fire on multiple employees. Can't say much more and don't want to declare anyone dead, but it's bad. 3:46 p.m. There is nothing more terrifying than hearing multiple people get shot while you're under your desk and then hear the gunman reload. 4:10 p.m. I'm currently waiting to be interviewed by police, so I'm safe and no longer at the office.